Hey everyone, are you ready to dive into a case that had the entire world glued to their TVs? You know the one where everyone remembers exactly where they were when they heard the verdict? We're talking about O.J. Simpson, of course.
And you're right to be here for this deep dive because this story, it really goes way beyond just a typical courtroom drama, you know? You've got fame, a brutal crime, and all of this is happening against the backdrop of, well, let's just say some very complex social dynamics happening in America back in the 90s.
This wasn't just a murder trial, that's for sure. It's about looking at everything surrounding the case, the whole picture. And since you all wanted to know more about the O.J. Simpson case specifically, that's what we're doing. We're going to unpack the crime itself, the evidence, the way the media went crazy, and the lasting impact it's had on society.
It's almost like a case study when you think about it, like how race, celebrity, and the justice system, how all of those things can just collide and grab everyone's attention at once.
Okay, so let's rewind for a second. It's June 12th, 1994. Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman are found murdered outside her home in Brentwood. And it was brutal. Even seasoned investigators were shocked by the crime scene.
It was the violence that really got to people right from the beginning. This wasn't random, not at all. The crime scene, it told a story. It pointed to something a lot more personal, something calculated. It was chilling. It's no wonder it grabbed everyone's attention right away.
And of course, suspicion immediately fell on O.J. Simpson. He was Nicole's ex-husband, and their past was about to become front-page news.
And that past, it's key here. Police had reasons, specific reasons, to look at O.J. There were past accusations of domestic violence, and then there's the evidence at the crime scene, blood, a glove. It was starting to add up.
Then, just a few days later, June 17th, 1994, one of the most surreal things ever happens on live TV, the White Bronco chase. I don't know about you, but I was glued to the TV watching it all unfold live.
That chase, it wasn't just a police chase, not really. It was like the shared national experience. Something local turned into something everyone had an opinion on. You had people choosing sides before the trial even started. It shows you how much the media was already shaping how everyone saw the case.
It's amazing. You're right. Everyone remembers that chase. And speaking of unforgettable people, this case had a lot of them. O.J., the football hero, now fighting for his life, basically. This high-powered legal team, both sides, ready to go head-to-head in court. And of course, you can't forget about the judge, Lance Einero, and the lead prosecutor, Marcia Clark, stuck in the middle of this media frenzy.
It was like a recipe for drama, unlike anything we'd ever seen. It wasn't just about the law. It was these big personalities, clashing, different stories, battling it out on TV with the whole world watching.
So the stage is set, everyone and their mother is watching, and the trial begins. And at first, it really did seem like the prosecution had a slam-dunk case.
Oh, absolutely. It was compelling. DNA evidence, that bloody glove, all pointing to O.J. I mean, it seemed open and shut, right?
Right. But then, and this is what everyone remembers, the case takes this wild turn. O.J.'s defense team, they called them the Dream Team, had something else in mind.
Oh, they did. Johnny Cochran, he was leading the pack, and they were brilliant. They started picking apart the prosecution's case piece by piece. They shifted the focus, made it about the LAPD, said they were planting evidence, messed up the investigation because of, well, you know.
Racial bias. It was a huge turning point. Suddenly, everyone's doubting the LAPD, how they handled everything.
And you got to remember, this is just a few years after Rodney King, the LA riots. The timing, it was huge. People, especially the Black community, they already didn't trust the LAPD, played right into the defense's strategy.
The city was on edge, still healing, and this case just brought all that tension right back to the surface.
Exactly. And Cochran, he was smart, knew how to use that feeling, that anger. He wove it into O.J.'s defense. It wasn't just about O.J. anymore. It was about so much more, a system that had failed people of color for, well, forever.
And then who could forget it? The gloves. The prosecution. They thought they had him.
And that's where the defense, they were smart. They used this tiny detail, made it into something huge.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. I mean, come on. Everyone remembered that line.
Genius. Whether they planned it or not, doesn't matter. O.J. struggling with those gloves, everyone saw it, made people doubt. The jury, everyone watching at home, it was all part of their plan. Find holes, make people doubt.
It was like watching a movie. A legal thriller, but this was real life, playing out on TV. So all this doubt, everyone's on the edge of their seats, waiting for the verdict. What happened next? Well, we all know the answer to that one. And then October 3rd, 1995, the day the verdict was read, it felt like the whole world stood still.
Not guilty. I mean, people were shocked. You could feel it, this wave across the country, around the world, really. And it was right down the middle, racially, you know. You could tell this case, this verdict, it hit a nerve, brought up a lot of feelings.
It really did. It was like this cultural earthquake. And for a lot of Black Americans, I think, the verdict, it felt like a win. Like finally, someone who looked like them beat a system that's, well, let's be honest, it's been rigged against them for a long time.
And for a lot of white Americans, it was the opposite. They couldn't believe it. They saw it as like, if you're rich and famous, you can get away with anything. It made people question the whole system.
Yeah. The verdict was just the beginning. It forced America to look in the mirror, you know? All of a sudden, we're talking about race, about bias, things people didn't really talk about much before.
And here's the thing. OJ, he might have walked free, but that wasn't the end of it for him. Not legally, at least. Don't forget about the civil trial in 97.
Right, for the wrongful deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. Now, for our listeners who aren't lawyers, what's the difference there? Why have two trials?
It's about the burden of proof, how much you have to prove to win. In a criminal trial, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. But in a civil trial, it's preponderance of the evidence, basically. Is it more likely than not? Lower bar. And in the civil trial, the jury found that, yeah, more likely than not, OJ was responsible for their deaths.
And he was ordered to pay millions to the families. So even with the not guilty verdict, the court of public opinion, it went a different way.
For sure. It shows how complicated justice is. Sometimes what happens in court, it doesn't line up with what people feel, you know? What's right, what's wrong? And OJ's story, it doesn't end there either. His life after the trials, it wasn't pretty. More struggles, more problems with the law. It's like a whole other chapter.
It's really something, isn't it? Like a Greek tragedy, the rise, the fall, and the cameras always watching. OJ's story reminds us that fame, money, it doesn't protect you from the consequences forever.
It reminds us that this case, even after all these years, it still matters. It's about race, about justice, about how the media, how it shapes our world.
This was a deep dive, but honestly, I feel like we've only scratched the surface. If you're like me, and I think you are, you're going to want to dive deeper. If you're looking for a place to start, check out the OJ Made in America documentary. It's incredible. It gives you the whole picture, the man, the case, the times. Really well done.
Couldn't agree more. O.J. Simpson, he wasn't just a trial, he was a phenomenon, and we're still feeling the effects. Makes you think about the justice system, how the media works, even about ourselves, you know?
No easy answers, that's for sure. Just a lot to think about long after this is over. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.